Hey everybody, it's David from davidim.com, and I'm just an average everyday sort of working photographer. I've been paying the bills with my camera for about 5 years now. I'm an ordinary guy. If I can do this stuff, so can you. I don't have a chip on my shoulder like a lot of photographers in my industry seem to. And yeah, I'm just here to help you out, show you a little bit about my workflow, what I do. I'm typically a wedding, portrait, commercial photographer, but this is a landscape shot we're going to walk through today and just show you how you can add a little bit of interest, take an ordinary sort of underexposed shot like this and turn it into something a little more jazzy. So stay with us and hope you enjoy. So here we go. We're going to start with this pretty average, bad looking scene. This is from Stratford, my hometown, and we're going to see what we can coax out of this image. Sometimes, we take a quick grab shot or that sort of thing. I didn't shoot this off a tripod, but I want something that tells the story more than this underexposed thing. I was exposing for the sky. So we're going to show you today what the power of a RAW file can do in bringing back some detail and trying to tell a story. And also this is something that maybe I'd offer some of the local tourists to help remember their time in Stratford. So just starting off, the basic thing, it's a good idea to open up the shadows here and bring down the highlights. It's going to give us sort of an HDR look, and that's for some people, it's not for others, but ultimately I want to make this a little bit jazzy so we can show you what we can do with something that started out really pretty not good. So I'm also going to bring in my white point and add a little bit of contrast to this scene because we can see just how gray it is. So I do that with this slider and I click and drag it to the right or the left and you can see what happens. Now, in order to find the proper one, I like to hold Option or Alt and click on this, and you can see everything's black. And then I just drag it till I start seeing some red. And red denotes that we're getting to the white, where there's no information and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to back it off till I don't see any of those pixels and let go. There, that's good. So you can see what would have been bright right there. And then the blacks is the same thing. The blacks I go further, so we can go into the dark spots here and get some contrast. Now, overall, the scene is still a little bit too dark, so I'm going to up my exposure just a bit. And that's more what I want. It's also too blue. This was a lot warmer and a lot redder, so I'm going to change my white balance. It's probably just shot on auto. And I'm going to move it to shade, is oftentimes good. And then I'm also going to add some magenta into this scene to really make it sort of pop and give me a nice feel. So you can see already in just a few clicks that we're coming along. I'm going to straighten this up. That horizon line looks a little crooked to me, so I just use my crop tool, click and drag that, try and find some sort of horizon. That looks a little bit better. Now, I've got some more contrast in this. I also want blue, yellow, green, magenta contrast as well. So I'm going to start by brushing a little bit of that in. We're going to reset our brush by holding Alt or Option, just clicking right here on Effect, turns to Reset, or you can just, if one of these is off, you can double click on them as well. So we're going to start with some blue temperature. I'm going to turn my flow down. I don't want it too high. Nice soft feathered brush, and just start brushing that in a little bit. Just a little bit across the top. I don't want to overdo this. But there you go. You can see how it's coming along. If I did overdo it, I can just back off my slider. And we can see where we painted by clicking this Show Selected Mask Overlay. So there you go. That's where my mask was. I'm not going to worry about that little spot that I missed. There it is. So we've got a little bit more blue. I might actually bring that back. If these pins don't show up, they're under here. Show Edit Pins. Auto always. Oftentimes I have it on Never, but for my purposes right now, I'm going to be using the mouse more than I usually would instead of keyboard shortcuts, so you folks can follow along at home. And just turn that overlay off and just do it by brush that in there. That looks good. I might just up it a tiny bit more, a little bit more blue. And because of the nature of this one with the reflection, I'm going to start a new brush, and I'm just going to do that down here as well, because we're sort of mirroring it. And that, the reflection, since the water is a little choppier, I'm just going to off. I don't need that as strong. So now we're going to brush in our sunset as well. So let's make it a little bit warmer, a little more red, and brush that in. So you can see if I hit delete, what happened? Just subtle. It's not a very subtle thing we're doing to this image, but overall, just brush that in there. See how that peeks out? Maybe I'll brush that spot a little bit. If I want a new brush, I can do this. Just double it again. Hit O to see our overlay. There we go. Okay, so we're coming along. I hit the backslash key and it shows what we started with and what we've got now. Kind of interesting. Now, I've just noticed that this guy's obviously got a white shirt, and what we don't want is him looking too purpley, too crazy, because that's going to be sort of a telltale of exactly what we've done to this image. So I'm just going to brush him in. He looks a little purple, and so I'm just going to make him a little more green and a little warmer because he's a little bit blue. Let's brush that in. I'm actually going to up our flow here, just so I don't have to waste so much. I'd take more time on this shot, but I want to go quick. I gotta go fast. So I'm just going to brush that in here into the shadows because that was a pretty blue area. Might brush it in over here. We can see these street lamps. They're casting a really warm, awesome color. There we go. That's good. So just looking at this scene, I'm liking what we're getting so far. I'm going to leave the clarity and the vibrance alone. You can see just how crazy that's going to make things. If you like that look, then you go for it by all means, but I'm just going to double click those to reset it. I might add a little bit more contrast. Maybe we'll save that till the end though. So we got our basic. Let's go down. We're going to skip tone curve, split toning detail. So this is how we control our sharpness. Basically, this is one thing that's really going to make your photos stand out from your friends or your competitors if you're not already doing this. So let's zoom in here. You can see this was shot with a sharp lens. It is handheld, but ultimately we can trick more out of this. So we have a look at these leaves, and this is what base sharpening is. Just a little bit blurry. Hopefully you can see that on your video at home. And I'm just going to bring that slider to the side, and I like to go on the higher side of things here, and you can see the difference there. There's no sharpening, and there's a high amount of sharpening. Just how that picks that out. You can see those birds in the background. Initially they look like dust spots, but when we sharpen it, we can see a little more definition in the wings and that sort of thing. But what we also get is when we got a blank sky, there's like a cross hatching here. The sharpening is applied blanket across this whole image, and ultimately that's not what I need. I want it on edges and details, but on blank spots, I don't want to see that over sharpened look. And we can fix that by this masking slider. So when you move it, you don't see much going on, but really, if we hold our Option or Alt key again, it's going to show us a mask. And white is where the sharpening is applied, and black is where it will not be applied. So you can see as I slide, typically I want that sky perfectly black, and I still got a lot of sharpening applied. So I like to mask out most of this. And you can see here, so I'm picking out all those edges, the reflection off the water, the man on the left of our image that we fixed before, the couple on the bridge you can see, but not a whole lot else. So I like that. So if we move in here to have a look at it, you can see the sharpening is nice and strong. But if I back that masking off, it sharpens everything, including the sky up here. Not what we want. So I'm going to leave that just like that. Now, with opening up the shadows as much as we did, we're going to create some noise in there. So noise personally bothers me very, very little, but it drives lots of people nuts. So we're just going to take our luminance, that's the little dots, and the red, green, blues, you can see some of them in here, that's the color slider. So luminance, let's just up it a bit. It takes a second to load in. You can put it like that. You don't want to get it too smudgy. If you go too far, it's going to look too painterly. But ultimately, that looks okay. And then the color, up that a little bit as well, maybe back that down. These are all personal preference things. No one can tell you exactly the right way to do it. You don't want to be losing a ton of detail, but if noise bothers you like crazy, then you want to get rid of it as well. But because of what we did, that generated a lot of noise, sort of bending those pixels. Underexposed scene, bringing it up, a lot of noise. If you can have an overexposed scene and bring it down, you won't find as much noise. Lens corrections has to do with the lens. You can just click that on and see what it does. There you go, just straightened up a little of the barrel distortion and things like that. We can see what lens this was shot with. Nikon Nikkor 50mm 1.8G, cheap, excellent lens. Effects, this is where a lot of people would go overboard with the post-crop vignetting. You can like that look, that's totally fine. Personally, I'm not crazy about it. I do like a little bit of vignette, but I'm just going to brush my own in here. So I'm going to take this, a new adjustment brush, and I'm going to get a nice big soft brush and just brush a little bit. Oh, that's too much. Back this off. A little bit there, just to help capture your eye where I want it. But what I don't want is that heavy vignette look like up here. I'm not a big fan of that. So we're just going to back that off, undo brush stroke, even that. So do one quick one, down. There you go. And then the last thing we're going to do is just make this a little more dynamic, and that's with dodging and burning. So that's adding light to lighter areas, taking away light from darker areas. So I'm going to start with the darker brush here because I've already got it selected. And just, you know what, I lied. I'm going to move her to bright. And pick out the brighter areas and just give them a little, I don't need a full flow on this. And this might even be too high. But see this bank right here? Just going to brush that. These slightly lighter areas. I'm going to start with a little bit bigger brush and a little less flow on this. And you just get a feel for this sort of thing. I'm going to use this sort of S shape to draw our attention right into that couple and that sunset. Obviously, that's the subject matter here. I'm going to brighten up this pathway, some of these people, maybe around these lights a little bit. And this is something that you can take your time on. I'm just going with these streaks of light just to brighten them up and make things a little bit more dynamic. And again, we can see our overlay by hitting O or clicking this box down here. You can see where exactly we've done this. And sometimes that can really help. There's the lighter spots. Okay, and now we're going to start a new brush. Click that off because I don't like the look of it. Now I'm just going to do the opposite, a little darker in the darker areas. Use a larger brush, nice soft strokes. Here we go. The darker areas, and that just adds a little contrast, sort of local contrast, right, as opposed to our big global adjustments, and just helps pop things out a little bit. You can see what I'm doing in here, just darkening down this a little bit. And overall, I think that's going to be pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that shot. It's not the greatest shot or anything like that. I just wanted to show you what an average looking shot can do when you edit it and sort of throw the power of Lightroom and your imagination behind it. And there you go. So if we want to look and see what we started with, here we go, / key, and that's where we ended up. Something that's going to be a little bit of a wow. You can put it on Facebook, you can show your friends, and it helps remember what it was actually like. I went for more what it felt like. You know, this is a little bit surreal, but overall it's closer to my feeling and my emotion and what was actually happening than this image ever will be. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the comments section below, and I'll hope to see you soon.